E kolu mea nui ma ka honua o ka mana oi o ka mana o lana a me ke aloha kai oia e po mai ka ina mea a pau po mai ka ina mea a pau e nā makua nā keiki nā mamo aiura me e pelaima a me ke aloha kai oia e po mai ka ina mea pau po mai ka ina mea pau e kolu mea nui ma ka honua o ka mana oi o ka mana o lana a me ke aloha kai oia e po mai ka ina mea pau po mai ka ina mea pau po mai ka ina mea pau. Aloha. La Pule Sunday. So all those of you that did not attend church today, you just got your Sunday service song that was E Kolu Mea Nui, and you sometimes hear it. And in fact, Kili'i was telling me that he used to think that was a party song. He used to think it was a drinking song because you heard it so often at parties and things. But it's actually a church song, and it comes from, I think it's Corinthians, the three greatest things, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. It comes from that Bible verse. And I'm not really a churchy, Bible-y person these days, although I was raised in the church, and my grandparents raised me and all of us in church. And that was a very large part. As a Native Hawaiian family, my grandparents did speak Hawaiian at home. And so we all understood Hawaiian, although I don't speak it nowadays anymore, sadly. But we were also very much in church, and church was a big part of our lives. And I think that happens much less so in Hawaiian households today than it did even 30 or 40 years ago. But in our generation, church was one of the things that held us together and was a big part of our community. And so I remember even, going to school as a child on Thursdays, we'd have a religious education. And so we would all march down to the Malama Lama Church down the street or something from Keaukaha Elementary School. And we would have education classes there. So that was in Keaukaha when I was growing up. My grandparents raised me. My name is Tani, Waipa, and I come from Keaukaha. I was raised there. I was actually born in California, but my grandmother went and got me when I was 3 months old and said, "You're coming home with me." So, which often is the case in Hawaiian households. The oldest child is often hanai by the grandparents, and so I feel very blessed and very fortunate to have been raised by my grandparents in Keaukaha, which was just a little place at the time. It was, we were a very tight-knit community, and many of my cousins still live there. I left Hilo when I was, I convinced my parents to send me away to school, to send me to Honolulu to go to school when I was a junior, because because it was better. And but my father was a music teacher at St. Joseph's for 35 years. But we always had music at home in our household. And someone was asking me last night, well, if your dad was a music teacher, you must have always had music at home. We did. I mean, we were so, I mean, there wasn't, for one thing, you know, the TV went off at midnight. So, and sometimes because we're living in Hilo, there was no reception. So, you know, you make your own fun and you make music at home. That was our entertainment. That's what we did. And so all of us could sing harmony, and it was not a big deal. I love singing with my sister and my cousin. We should do them one time. We should have them come.
Definitely.
That would be fun. And we always did church songs at home too. So that was one. Both my grandfather actually comes from here, from Puna. We're in Puna right now. He comes from a place past Kalapana, which has already been overrun with lava for many years, called Kapa'ahu. And I want to talk about my grandparents because I want to honor them in this process and recognize what tremendous changes they went through in their lifetimes. My grandfather was born in Kapa'ahu, which is where Queen's Bath was, where Waha'ula Heiau was, in 1900. And at the time, Waha'ula Heiau was still a functioning heiau. He saw things at Waha'ula when he was a child that he would tell us that were pretty incredible and pretty unbelievable. And during his lifetime, he went away to Lahaina school as a poi slinger, he said, because he could make poi very well and could sling poi pretty well. And so he went to Lahaina Luna, never got into school, but came back to Hilo and became a policeman at the time and was a motorcycle cop and rode in President Roosevelt's procession through motorcade through Hilo. Wow. And he was a police officer and then an entrepreneur, and he put my father, who was the first to graduate in our family from college, through school making lauhala, our whole family, because they were from Puna Pa'iahala, with the long lauhala leaves. They were all lauhala weavers, and so that's how my father got put through college, because my grandfather and his family would come down on the weekends and process lauhala. So we're home here in Puna. My grandmother was born on the island of Kauai in Waimea and was hanai to family members in Ka'u. And although, unlike many Hawaiian families, her parents never told her that she was hanai and from the island of Kauai. So when my grandfather was a police officer during World War II, there was a notice that was sent out to all of the police stations, seeing if they could find Kapeka or Elizabeth Hano Kapea, and that was my grandmother. And so my grandfather went home. They said her mother was looking for her from the island of Kauai. And so my grandfather went home and spoke to his mother-in-law and asked her about it. And she said, yes, we've never told her she was hanai, but she's hanai. Her mother is actually on Kauai. So my grandmother, during World War II, went to the island of Kauai to meet her mother for the first time. And she came home with two ni'ihau shell lays. This is one of them.
Oh, my goodness.
And as gifts. The other one broke when I was, still a child. But I saved all the shells and had them restrung so that when my daughter got married, she wore it as a choker at her wedding. So we still have them in the family. And my grandmother, when she was down in Ka'u, she would talk about plantation life back down there. Her dad was a painter at the plantation. In summers, they would go up into the mountains and sing and basically, get away for the summer during the weekends and things. So she had an uncle. He was blind, and he wrote this song called Nani no Hea. And that's kind of become our family song. I think my dad probably transcribed it, and we have it somewhere. But anyway, so wow. This is it. Yeah, this is an original song, so I don't think it's ever been published. And it speaks of the beauty of a crown of flowers that this girl wears, and he can't see her because he's blind, but he can smell these flowers that she's wearing.
Wow.
Nani no hea ke ala oia pua ke honi oi aho o mau uale a ohu I kalana kila I kale kalaunu a ke aloha shua mauli no me ke ona ona sweet me ka manahe I ka poli I ke kono ahe a ka makema a ke ulu mahi ka manao ulu mahi ka manao nani no hea ke ala oia pua ke oni oi aho o mau uale a ohu I kalana kila I kale kalaunu a ke aloha shua mauli no me ke ona ona sweet me ka manahe I ka poli I ke kono ahe a ka makema a ke ulu mahi ka manao ulu mahi ka manao Nani no hea.
Wow.
And after that, at home, my aunties all bust into like Hano Hano Pa Hoa, which is more drinking songish. O no na ikikula pa hoe hoe, ila ila ho ia u, I ka uike, me ka ua I mai ole ua. Anyway, some original family songs.
So amazing.
So yeah, our family has always, had music going on. In fact, when I was little, we used to even, this is kind of OCD maybe, but yeah, we would like harmonize to everything. Like even the dryer, the sound the dryer makes when it goes off at the end of the cycle. Yeah, we would harmonize to that. Or the car sound, when you open the car and the keys are still inside. Everybody would take a harmony part to it. It was kind of like, that was a thing. So for a long time, I'm gonna have some coffee. I should have harmonized to that, whatever the song that was. So for a long time after I graduated from high school, I didn't want to have anything to do with music at all. I pretty much had enough of it. And I didn't have a great relationship with my parents. And my father being the musician in Hilo for a long time. That one wasn't a part of my life. But I do have to say that one of the things I was fortunate to be exposed to as a child was, some of you might remember this, because he was a music teacher, the music companies would send him, these samples, sheets of music and stuff like that. And there are these little 45 records that would come on plastic sheets that you would tear out of the plastic sheet and put on your record player. And, it would give a sample of what this sounded like. When I was 7 years old, and I would dig that stuff out of my dad's trash can. He would throw it in the trash because, and I would go dig in his trash can, and those were my records because, they were. So I remember one time I was like 7, and I borrowed my cousin Lorna's portable record player, and I took one of those records out of the trash and played it, and it was Tommy Dorsey.
Wow.
And that was like a moment that was like the epiphany for me. I was like, from then on, I was like, I want that String of Pearls, and I want, Moonlight, all that kind of stuff.
Sonata.
Moonlight Sonata, Moonlight Serenade, Artie Shaw. So, and the Hilo Library was where, at the time, they had this huge collection of jazz records. And I read every book in the library on jazz and listened to all the records I could borrow quietly in the library. And that was the kind of music that I liked ever since. And so a lot of what I do is that. So I play a couple nights a week over on the west side at the Westin Hapuna from 7 to 9 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then also I'm really, really excited now to be playing with Jesse Snyder and Lauren Wilkin. Jesse, of course, plays sax and drums and clarinet and flute and everything else, sometimes all together at the same time.
Yes.
So unbelievable. So, and Lauren Wilkin is a fabulous piano player, and then sometimes we have Brian McCree on bass with us. So I get to play this I get to sing standards and all those kinds of things every week on Saturdays at the Kohala Suites. So when I moved to LA, I hadn't sung in a long time, and I went to I think it was a Barnes and Noble or something, basically books, something. And they had a jazz trio singing there. And I asked if I could come up and sing a song, and I guess they liked me. So they asked me to come back, and then they invited me to go sing with their big band, the swing band at the school. And I asked my boss if I could take off, lunchtime, because that's when they had their rehearsals a couple times a week. And he said, well, don't tell anybody else that I'm letting you do this. But I would go down, and that's where I first started singing in swing bands. And I got to know a bunch of jazz musicians, and I started singing in jazz trios and quartets in LA and in that area. And it was fun. I really liked it. But it was actually because of that I got started singing Hawaiian music again. Because one of the piano players had played a gig over on Maui at the Kapalua Hotel for 18 years. And he was back in LA taking care of his dad. And he wanted me to sing some Don Ho stuff and things. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know that song. And he got me started back in Hawaiian music and introduced me to some players in California. There's a ton of Hawaiians in California, of course. Everybody knows that. And Las Vegas. So I started doing both, singing Hawaiian and jazz. And I really like it that there is a crossover. There's a huge crossover of Hawaiian and jazz. A lot of the tunes that were written, the hapahaole tunes that were written in the 30s, 40s, 50s, all have jazz basis to them. So, sweet and lovely, ke ono na o kamaile. That's one. All of the other stuff like I should do this. There's a feeling deep in my heart, stabbing at me just like a dart. It's a feeling heavenly. I hadn't planned to do this one, but this is it. I see memories from out of the past, memories that always will last, of a place beside the sea. Waikiki, at night when the shadows are falling, I hear rolling surf calling, calling and calling to me. Waikiki, 'tis for you that my heart is yearning. My thoughts are always returning out to you across the sea. Your tropic nights, your wonderful charms are ever in my memory. And I recall when I held in my arms an angel sweet and heavenly. Waikiki, my whole life is empty without you. I miss that magic about you, magic beside the sea, magic of Waikiki, oh that magic of Waikiki. Hawaiian Standard, Andy Cummings, Waikiki. And I always introduce that song by saying, Andy wrote this in the middle of winter in, where was it? Lansing, Michigan. This poor boy from Hawaii who's used to the warm sands of Waikiki gets stuck in Lansing, Michigan and writes this song, but it's a classic, in Hawaiian standards. So, and I think it goes to show that wherever Hawaiians went, especially in the earlier part of the 1900s, they absorbed all of the music that was going on. And of course, in the 20s, 30s, there's jazz, seeing just a huge growth. And so they picked that up and they brought that home. And that was infused in a lot of the music here during that time. So it's the era that I like most. I call it the golden era of Hawaiian music. That's the golden Waikiki era. But this is another tune that I really, really dig. And usually when I'm at the Westin at Hapuna playing, I usually play with tracks and stuff, but I'm going to nix the tracks today. We're just going Laris. And I think this is one of the most beautiful songs. You go to my head and you linger like a haunting refrain, and I find you spinning round in my brain like the bubbles in a glass of champagne. You go to my head like a sip of sparkling burgundy brew, and I find the very mention of you like the kicker in a julep or two. The thrill of the thought that you might give a thought to my plea casts a spell over me. Still I say to myself, get a hold of yourself. Can't you see that it never could be? Well, you go to my head with a smile that makes my temperature rise like a summer with 1,000 Julys. You intoxicate my soul with your eyes, for I'm certain that this heart of mine hasn't a ghost of a chance in this crazy romance. You go to my head. You go to my head. You go to my head. And so I like playing with those kinds of keys and things. Having moved back to Hawaii from California, and I was there for 16 years. I raised my kids there. Things were really different than when I left, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I moved back here, honestly. I wanted to do music. I had no idea how hard it was going to be to do that, and there's a long story that goes along with that, but we'll skip most of that and just say that I ended up having to support myself playing music. And I, before that, had only been a vocalist. I didn't know how to play ukulele. I mean, you learn the basic C, F, G7 kind of a deal, in school. And, but I had to learn to play, to accompany myself. So, you do what you have to, man, to survive. So, it's still not always comfortable for me to play ukulele. I'd rather just sing, honestly. If I had my druthers, I'd probably just sing. But it's become kind of a fun thing to do, so I kind of like it. And of course, as a musician, and all you musicians know this, the first thing that, if you're playing at a hotel, the first thing tourists are going to ask if you're holding a ukulele is, can you play Over the Rainbow? And I always say no. I don't know that song. But I've come up with a better way to answer that. And this is one of the tunes that I sang with the Beach City Swing Band when I was in California. And funny that we did this tune in Culver City, in front of the Culver City Hotel at the Culver City Plaza, where during the filming of The Wizard of Oz, all the Munchkins stayed there at that hotel. and we played that song in front of the hotel as part of, I don't know, some celebration of something. But yeah, I think back to that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. One thing I want to say is one of my favorite people to watch on YouTube is Willie K. I just love what he does with stuff, especially Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Like he says, don't mess with my Judy. I get bitchy when you mess with Judy Garland, and her version of Over the Rainbow. And I did some checking, and the guy who wrote Over the Rainbow's name was Harold Arlen. And he was actually born Hyman Arluck to a Jewish family in Buffalo, New York. His father was a cantor or a singer in synagogues. He's the music person in the synagogue, so it's not unusual that Harold Arlen had this musical background. And 16, he was in New York against his parents' wishes, with his own band, composing things for stage, Broadway plays. And then he he gets so good and is so well recognized that he moves to Hollywood and starts working for MGM and gets his contract to do all of the music for The Wizard of Oz. And this is what he writes. Of course, the signature Judy Garland song, the signature song of that movie is Over the Rainbow. Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
It's one of the most beautiful songs
ever. Right? It is. And the funny thing is, nobody ever knows that there's a prelude to the song. It doesn't start at Somewhere Over the Rainbow. There's a whole beginning part to that song that nobody ever sings.
Do we get to hear it?
Well, you get to hear it, yes. Okay. And it come on mine because I'm really still nervous over here, but and I've been really working on this, but there might be a few mistakes. So, but I just think it's a beautiful song, and I was really fortunate to be able to sing it with a big band. So back in the day, so I'm gonna try it here on ukulele. And this is going to be my response now to when people ask me to sing this at the hotel. Do you know Over the Rainbow? Yes, I do. I'm going to sing it for you right now. Okay. And for those of you that are playing ukulele along with me, we're doing this in B flat. is a hopeless jumble, and the raindrops tumble all around. Heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I?
Wow.
Still a work in progress, you know, it all is all the time. My hubby said something really important this morning to me as we were coming on over here. And can you say it again? It's a process. What? Because I'm always like super like wound up and nervous before these kinds of things. You said that perfection
Is a cycle
is a cycle
of continuous
improvement.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be my mantra for the day. Perfection is a cycle of continuous improvement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Nafya.
Mahalo, Tani.
Mahalo. Thank you. Aloha to everybody. Big mahalo to Compassion and Choices for allowing all of us to play music and be aloha, giving us this chance to say mahalo to you and to everyone for enjoying the music and sharing the love, the peace all around the world. And this is an extra part, okay? So Michael told me that you guys are about end of life process, which I think is really, really, really important and not something that we address, I think, often enough. Our last auntie just passed in October, and we got there just about 20 minutes after she had passed, and you could still feel it. And I wanted to go with her. That process at the end of life is really super important, and how you get there is important too. So I just want to say mahalo to you guys for making that part of life, because it is a part of life, making that part of life important and making sure that it's a beautiful thing. Passing is a beautiful thing. So mahalo.